When Emily Calloway signed up for the Galactic Intelligence Test, she had no idea it would come to this. The test was supposed to be an easy stepping stone to a better life, an opportunity to prove her intelligence and earn a prestigious position within the Galactic Federation. The ad had been all over the news. Do you think you're smart? Take the Galactic Intelligence Test. Prove your worth among the stars. It was a challenge that promised glory, a title, and access to resources beyond her wildest dreams. A chance to step into the realm of the intellectual elite. But sitting in a cold metallic chair, staring at the complex, swirling patterns on the screen in front of her, Emily wasn't feeling glorious. Instead, she felt a twinge of panic creeping in. The test was supposed to involve solving a series of advanced puzzles, but this wasn't a puzzle. At least, not the kind she was used to solving. The symbols on the screen shifted and morphed in unpredictable ways, almost as if they were alive, taunting her. Numbers danced across the interface in bizarre sequences that made no sense. The instructions were cryptic at best, and the clock was ticking down rapidly. She wasn't even sure what was happening anymore. She glanced around the room, hoping for some kind of answer or hint. Her fellow test-takers seemed just as bewildered as she was, their faces contorted with frustration and confusion. The testing room, a stark white chamber with a high ceiling, felt suffocating as the pressure mounted. The air hummed with an almost electric tension, and a voice, smooth and disembodied, echoed through the room, sending a chill down her spine. "Welcome to the Galactic Intelligence Test," the voice boomed, its tone impassive. "This is not just a test of your intelligence. It is a test of your ability to adapt, to think beyond the boundaries of your species. Solve the puzzle, and you will prove your worth. Fail, and you will return to your insignificant existence. You have 30 minutes. Begin." The voice cut off abruptly, and the screen in front of Emily flickered to life again, displaying a new set of impossible-looking symbols. It was as if the entire galaxy had conspired to create the most difficult puzzle ever imagined, and now she was supposed to crack it. Her mind raced. This was no ordinary test. This was an intergalactic challenge, designed by beings far beyond human comprehension. And she had to solve it. Emily took a deep breath and cracked her knuckles. She had always been good at puzzles, at seeing patterns where others couldn't. But this was different. This wasn't like the Sudoku grids she solved in her free time, or the abstract riddles she used to love in her childhood. This felt alive. The symbols seemed to mock her as they rearranged themselves on the screen. No matter how she tried to approach the problem, it seemed impossible. She was a physicist by training, not a codebreaker or a cryptographer. Suddenly, an idea hit her. Could it be a trick? Was the test really asking her to think outside the box? Maybe the puzzle wasn't meant to be solved the traditional way. Maybe it was a test of something else, creativity, perhaps, or resourcefulness. She leaned in closer, squinting at the symbols, and took another deep breath. "Okay, Emily. You can do this," she muttered to herself. She pressed a few keys, trying to manipulate the symbols in a way that felt right. Nothing. The screen flashed red, a warning that time was running out. But she wasn't giving up yet. A thought crossed her mind. She hadn't tried everything. She might be looking at it all wrong. What if the symbols weren't just numbers or abstract characters? What if they were representations of something else entirely, something not even human? The possibility hit her like a lightning bolt. "Come on," she whispered, her fingers flying across the interface, manipulating the symbols in new ways. She tapped a few more keys, and then, just as the timer was about to expire, the symbols began to align in a pattern. A flicker of recognition sparked in her mind. The shapes weren't random. They were a visual representation of a mathematical formula. It was a complicated one, sure, but Emily had spent years studying mathematical concepts. She just had to think of it from a different angle. The screen in front of her suddenly shifted, and for the briefest moment, the symbols rearranged themselves into a familiar pattern, an advanced Sudoku puzzle. It was as if the test had twisted her mind into thinking outside of her comfort zone, pushing her past the point of logic and into creativity. Emily grinned. This was her wheelhouse. She quickly filled in the grid, racing against the ticking clock. The seconds ticked by, but she barely noticed. The numbers fell into place, each one slotting into its proper location with satisfying precision. She was almost there. The final numbers went in, and then, the screen went blank. For a moment, Emily feared she had made a mistake. But then, slowly, the voice returned, this time with a hint of approval. "Congratulations, Emily Calloway," the voice said, its tone still neutral but somehow less cold. "You have passed the Galactic Intelligence Test. You have demonstrated not only intellect, but creativity, adaptability, and resourcefulness. Prepare yourself for the next stage." The screen faded to black, and Emily let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She had done it. She had just outsmarted an intergalactic intelligence test, and for the first time in her life, she felt as though she truly belonged among the stars. The victory was short-lived. Emily's heart was still racing when the screen in front of her flashed again, but this time it wasn't the expected congratulatory message. Instead, the words that appeared seemed to mock her success. "Test passed. Welcome to the next stage." The room around her shifted. The stark white walls, once intimidating, now seemed like mere projections as the floor beneath her began to retract. Her chair slid backward, sending her jolting forward in surprise. The very ground she stood on disintegrated, and for a split second, she feared she was falling into the unknown. The walls dissolved entirely, revealing a vast, endless void of swirling lights and incomprehensible shapes. Emily's stomach lurched as she tried to steady herself, but before she could process what was happening, she was no longer in the testing room at all. She stood in a strange, alien landscape, an expanse that seemed to stretch for infinity. The sky was a swirling mass of colors, hues of violet and green colliding with streaks of electric blue, while the ground below her appeared to be some kind of crystalline terrain that glimmered underfoot. Her body felt weightless, as though gravity had been forgotten entirely. Around her, floating platforms drifted lazily in mid-air, each one displaying strange alien symbols. The sound of a soft hum filled the air, but there were no visible sources. The scene was both beautiful and terrifying, the kind of thing that could overwhelm even the most seasoned explorer. A voice, this time not the disembodied announcer, echoed from nowhere. "You have been selected," it said, calm and unfeeling. "Your intelligence has passed the first stage, but this is the true test. Welcome to the Expanse, the realm where only the brightest survive. Fail, and you will never see your home again. Succeed, and you will be granted untold power, knowledge, and a place among the stars." Emily swallowed hard. The first stage. She hadn't expected a next stage, and certainly not one like this. The test had started with something as mundane as a Sudoku grid, but now? This wasn't a test. This was something else entirely. Something far beyond the realm of human experience. She looked around, gathering her thoughts. The stakes were higher than ever. If she failed, she wouldn't just be sent back to Earth. She'd vanish into the depths of this strange expanse, lost among a cosmos that was more alien than she could ever have imagined. "Great," she muttered to herself, her nerves tightening. "What now?" Without warning, a series of floating platforms began to move toward her, each one carrying a different challenge. Each one displayed a puzzle in the same alien symbols she had seen earlier. But this time, they weren't just static, they were alive, shifting constantly, changing in ways that made them harder to interpret. She realized this wasn't a simple Sudoku game anymore. It was an advanced cognitive challenge designed to stretch the limits of her intelligence. She reached out to touch one of the platforms, and as soon as her hand made contact, a new set of symbols appeared before her. The challenge was apparent. She needed to solve the symbols in order to proceed. The platform hovered just out of reach, taunting her with its shifting patterns. The symbols looked familiar at first, like a jumbled version of the puzzle she had solved before, but then they morphed again, and Emily felt her frustration growing. Her mind raced. What kind of test was this? How could she approach it? It was clear that the rules weren't the same as before. This wasn't just about solving patterns anymore. This was about adaptability, creativity, and perhaps even psychological endurance. The stakes were far higher now. She wasn't just solving puzzles. She was in an arena where the very fabric of logic itself bent and twisted in front of her. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She remembered the first test, the Sudoku grid that had defied every expectation, only to reveal itself as something she could relate to. She realized then that she had to stop thinking about the symbols in the conventional sense. This wasn't about logic in the way she understood it. It was about tapping into something deeper, something beyond the human way of thinking. Emily slowly reached for another platform, this one showing a cluster of geometric shapes. She squinted at them, and then, like a switch flipping in her brain, she saw it, the key. These shapes, these symbols, they were all representations of data she had seen before, but through the lens of an alien perspective. The challenge was showing her not just a riddle to solve, but a completely new way to view her world. Her heart skipped a beat as the realization hit her. They were testing how far she could stretch her mind. Could she think like them? Could she truly see the universe the way they did? "All right," she muttered to herself, narrowing her eyes. "Time to turn this on its head." She manipulated the symbols, shifting them and combining them in ways that had never occurred to her before. Slowly but surely, the pieces began to fit together, not in the way she expected, but in a way that made sense within this strange reality. The platform began to glow as her solution locked into place, and with a triumphant hum, the challenge faded. But instead of a congratulatory message, the voice returned, this time tinged with something else, something almost resembling curiosity. "You have succeeded," it said, its tone acknowledging her accomplishment. "But this is just the beginning. Many more trials await you in the expanse. Only those who can solve the impossible will earn their place in the galaxy." The platform she had been standing on floated higher into the air, and another set of challenges appeared before her. Each one seemed more complex, more intricate than the last. But now, Emily understood something critical. The game wasn't just about brute force intelligence. It was about thinking in ways that went beyond human comprehension. And with that, she steeled herself. Emily wasn't just fighting for a title anymore. She was fighting for something much bigger, the opportunity to show the galaxy that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest minds in the universe, and not only survive but thrive. The expanse had only just begun, and Emily Calloway wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever.